Okay, well, I think we're all set. We are at the top of the hour, so we want to respect your time and get going. On behalf of all the project partners, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar introducing the Creating Equitable Destinations report. Um, I'm happy to see strong attendance today, and yes, this event will be recorded for later. I'm David Archer, editorial manager at Destination Think, speaking to you from Haida Gwaii, which is a set of islands that is Haida territory off the north coast of BC in Canada. I will be your host and moderator for the next hour. And just for a quick introduction, I'm the editor for a lot of the content that we produce at Destination Think and co-producer of the Travel Beyond podcast as well. As we get going, I see that's happening already. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat so we can all get a sense of who is here. I'm going to quickly introduce some of the people you can see now and explain the structure of the next hour. So first, joining me from Destination Think is our CEO, Rodney Payne, who's going to kick us off with a brief introduction. Destination Think is the lead sponsor of this report and a project partner. Following Rodney, we'll hear from Bernadett Papp from the European Tourism Futures Institute. Bernadett is one of the lead authors of the report and will be presenting the main findings alongside Ben Lynam from the Travel Foundation. That should take about 20 minutes or so. And after that, we'll call on Annie Ewing from Destination Toronto, who will give us a short presentation on one of the 25 case studies that we pulled together in the report. And that is the Relax, Recharge, and Renew initiative. So we'll hear from Annie for about 10 minutes. And then to end today's webinar, I will facilitate a panel discussion with some excellent panelists we have in the room with us, Huw, Thijs, and Calum, and I'll introduce them more fully a bit later on. So please use the chat to interact and comment on the discussion. You can ask questions through the chat as well. If we are able, we'll get to those at the end if we have time, although you can see we have quite a full slate ahead of us. So let's jump right in. Here is Destination Think CEO Rodney Payne.
Thanks, David. Thank you all for being here to learn about this really important report on tourism equity. Destination Think's really proud to have been able to support as the lead sponsor and also work with the team on its creation. And I think that tourism has really made the world both better and worse in very profound ways. And it wouldn't be news to anyone on this call that the global tourism industry is facing multiple overlapping crises. And it's often those with the least power who bear a disproportionate burden. And in many ways, tourism is still part of the problem. While the economic benefits of tourism have been rising, the damage from travel is coming into sharper focus in recent years. And I'm sure in many parts of the world, you're seeing more reporting about transportation emissions and cultural erosion, economic leakage, ecosystem degradation, declines in housing availability, labor shortages, and other forms of inequality. And I heard this referred to yesterday as a festival of crises. And in many destinations, residents feel tourism is placing pressure on local communities. And we urgently need effective responses and solutions to these types of problems. It's really important that we act together and achieve policy changes that shift whole systems. And that can feel really daunting. And it's true that the travel industry at large isn't yet doing enough. And it's easy to feel like there isn't enough momentum or that you're alone and that the problems are very overwhelming. We believe at Think that the solutions to these very big problems actually already exist and that the role and potential within our industry is to spread them very quickly around the world. So as we get into this presentation, there's been a number of people involved. I just want to thank Tyler and Lindsay on our team for their involvement and all the work they've done to help the Travel Foundation and all the research partners bring this to life. And the founding members of the collective at Destination Think, the destinations who've helped to make this possible and who've shared ideas with the research team and some of their thoughts into the document. Initiatives like this report are part of momentum that we need. And it's just the beginning. We can scale up solutions intentionally and in collaboration. And that's what's going to let our industry really survive and thrive into the future by becoming part of the solution. So with that, I'd like to thank Ben and everyone at the Travel Foundation for leading this really important work, and hand over to you to share what you've found.
Thanks, Rodney. Yeah, it's the Festival of Crises isn't a festival any of us want to attend, but here we are. It's been exciting to feel the momentum of the research is bringing alongside of some of the work we've been doing, like you mentioned. I know you've got to run to your next event, so I will dismiss you now. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you later. And now I'd like to invite Bernadett and Ben to tell us all about the findings of the report.
Thanks, David. I'm starting us off, so let me just share screen. So Bernadett and I are going to quickly take you through a sort of summary of the report, and it's all freely available on the Travel Foundation website. The URL was there before. I'll post it up again in a minute when I'm done here. So let me just share. Okay, so as Rodney said, we've all seen the sort of the media coverage. So why did we begin this work over a year ago? It seems that more and more residents are questioning the costs and benefits of tourism, and that's despite the very many essential benefits that tourism can bring. The need for jobs and revenue, and even the recent memories of life without these benefits during COVID. There are a range of grievances. Rodney's just been through those, and all the headlines shown here were from this summer, just a few weeks of this summer. A lot of that was actually focused around Spain and the Balearics and that kind of area, but we all know that these issues apply far and wide. A lot of it might be media hype, but even so, we know that it's not going to go away. DMOs risk being blindsided, and they're asking us what the formula is for the benefits versus the burdens that they can get right for their communities. Asking, is there more that we can do to manage tourism better in destinations, and what are we missing? So that was one starting point really for the research that we undertook. But also, we know that there is this general movement that destinations are on the way through, which is from volume to value, from marketing to management, that kind of process. So we see more and more DMOs and NTOs looking to make that transition from promotion to stewardship, a shift towards a greater emphasis on getting added value for communities. But we also know that DMOs haven't really changed that much. They're still mostly using the same mandate, the same finance mechanisms, the same tools, often those being marketing tools. There's a pressure and a desire to contribute more broadly to societal goals, but there's a sort of a feeling that there's not really a clear way to do this. It's not that obvious how to do it. So again, that was our quest. Can we look into that more in more detail? So why equity in tourism? It's about equitable destinations and equitable tourism, this report. There are two really important messages that come out of our report. And it's because tourism relies on public resources and maintaining a social license to operate, we need to firstly understand and manage how tourism is impacting on residents outside of the tourism industry. And if the impacts fall on any group in particular, so understanding the distribution of benefits and burdens. So simply spreading tourism further, bringing in more jobs or attracting high spending visitors at the kind of the usual tactics won't automatically or necessarily make it fairer. And it might even make things worse, as we're going to show. The second message, consider how tourism can add value to support the wider goals and ambitions of your community, and seek to demonstrate this wider community value. So this is about DMOs and NTOs, National Tourism Organisations, fulfilling tourism's promise to contribute to their community's wider goals. So this is not tourism for tourism's sake, it's for wider goals. So this leads to a more equitable approach, and we define equitable tourism as in the top right here of the slide, a key principle of sustainable tourism that addresses fairness in access, use, and distribution of goods and benefits and costs from tourism development to meet the needs of both current and future generations. And we've highlighted those three words there because they're the essential ones. So we need to think about community needs. So we need stronger destination governance with a focus on broader community outcomes. And we need to understand through participatory approaches what these community needs are, how they differ across the community, and how tourism can support them. And that's not just economic, it's through all the different possible range of value that tourism can bring. The second really important word is fairness. And it's acknowledging a need for fairness, particularly for residents who are not directly involved in tourism and so are not directly benefiting economically, but still feeling burdened. So recognizing those people and any kind of underrepresented or underserved groups within that community. And the third word is distribution, and that's really important for us. We want to really emphasize it's not just about focusing on bringing benefits, it's about understanding how they are distributed across a community. It's not just about going net positive or maximizing the positives and minimizing the negatives. It's time to move beyond general discussions about tourism's contributions and critically examine where the benefits are going. And we do that in the report. We look at 5 different areas. So economic, environmental, cultural, spatial, which is where we really think about the access to places and the way that the place has been set up for different people and the way that they're using the place. And tourism experience equity, which was really very specific to all of these experiences that are being developed for visitors. Well, how accessible are they and how equitable are they for everyone? So there are 5 areas, and just very briefly for each one. So economic equity, we can understand how tourism might make a place less equitable. Tourism revenue can be concentrated in the hands of a few. Jobs created can be low paid. And typically 50 to 80% of tourism spend leaks from the destination, which means it basically provides little or no benefit locally. But we can also understand how it could be more equitable from tourism. Tourism can support entrepreneurialism. It can support small business development. Supply chains can be ethical and encourage employer diversity. So these are the sorts of things that we're looking at one way or the other. Environmental equity. So if nature and natural resources are being overused by tourism to the expense of others, that can lead to less equitable outcomes. But more equitable outcomes can be fostered if tourism contributes to urban regeneration, nature conservation, advocating for environmental protection, and providing funds for conservation. Culturally, tourism can be less equitable if it's promoting just maybe certain types of culture, leading to the marginalization of others, maybe reinforcing stereotypes. It might be cultural appropriation, such as travel reps wearing indigenous dress. Or it could be promoting equity by allowing a sense of civic pride, a sense of community, ensuring more meaningful representation of diverse heritage and culture, heightening respect and understanding for different communities. Spatial, residents can feel squeezed out of a place and a neighborhood as visitor needs are prioritized. Land can literally just be privatized or made less accessible for tourism development. But then on the flip side, tourism can support the development of infrastructure and amenities used by all and support the regeneration of deprived neighborhoods. It can provide infrastructure and like pathways and car parks, buses and public transport. The picture here is an example of the Traboul in Lyon, and that's basically a public-private agreement where these walkways are funded, but with the return or allowing access to visitors basically to these private areas. So you can see that we have lots and lots of examples in the report of all of these different types. Tourism experience equity. Tourism experiences are priced out of reach often for locals, and they're not targeted. They're not really encouraged to experience these things. Particularly poorer and more disadvantaged groups are affected by that. This is a picture of thermal spas in Budapest, where 90% of the visitors are now foreigners, but there was a time when it was much more used by local residents, and particularly saw the health benefits for some of the older residents of the community. So more equitable options could be focusing again on underserved sections of the community and bringing them access to broaden the social benefits, maybe through things like dual pricing or discounting for residents, that kind of thing. So this is what we're playing with, but like I say, in the report, it's absolutely packed with case studies and examples of how tourism can either enhance equity or do the opposite. So Bernadette's going to talk a bit more about those now.
Yes, thank you, Ben, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Indeed, from the case study research and the desk research, we identified a long list of 40 mechanisms that can help distribute the benefits of tourism within destination communities. Now, it's a very long list, but just to give you some ideas, these mechanisms include various revenue sharing and funding models. We looked at quite a few market control mechanisms like licensing or different ethical supply chain practices. We also have quite a few examples of business incubation programs or training programs, quite a few examples of regulatory instruments. Here you can think about access regulations to public space, for instance, or different zoning practices. We have quite a few examples of community-based resource management models, like setting up community enterprises or tourism concessions. You can think about different types of collaborative networks. We also looked at market-based mechanisms, such as product development, where local culture and environmental protection is in the focus, different pricing models, and we have some really excellent examples of social tourism initiatives. We also explored different charitable actions, initiatives focused on advocacy, and we also have 2 case studies focused on participatory approaches to decision-making. Now, these mechanisms are not really new. However, what we wanted to show was their potential to distribute the benefits of tourism equitably. And in the report, you will find information about how these mechanisms are used in practice, what are the success factors, what are the challenges related to their implementation, and how can their impact be measured. What is also important to realize is that most of them require multiple stakeholders and collaboration across stakeholders. In some cases, DMOs or similar organizations can be in the lead. They can take initiatives. In other cases, they can support the intervention, or they can advise on the intervention, or they can coordinate these joint efforts. Coming to the 25 case studies. So we have these 25 case studies. As you can see, they are spread around the world. Some of these initiatives have been in place for some time, so their impact can be measured quite well. Some are in an initial phase, others are more experimental, some are more mainstream. I think we can say that. Some have a longer time frame before impact can be really measured. Also, what you will see is that some are on a micro scale, while others, like earmarking tax, can be seen more as macro scale interventions. However, they all provide really valuable lessons, and most of all, they illustrate how the mechanisms work. What you will find is that most of them are very, so to say, information rich. So most of them can be linked to more than one equity type, and also most of them can be linked to more than one mechanism. We also aimed at a relatively even distribution of cases across world regions, and we also aimed at a relatively even distribution of cases across different destination types. So urban destinations, rural destinations, coastal destinations. You also see several colored pins on the map, which indicates which category, which equity type that intervention is linked to. And there are a few that we wanted to highlight today. Starting with the blue pins, we have a case from South Africa, from Cape Town, which is Makers Lending. And this is an incubator, a business incubation, and also a training program to empower local food entrepreneurs in the area and in the region. This is an initiative that started back in 2020, and it has created more than or supported more than 20 small businesses, created a lot of jobs in the region. So it's really driving equitable economic opportunities for disadvantaged communities. If we look at the green pins, then these are cases that really anchored in environmental equity. One example is from New Zealand, which is the Love Wanaka Love Queenstown Community Fund. And it's a partnership between two regional tourism organizations. And what they are doing, they try to promote environmental sustainability through collaboration and also through different projects that aim to fund local initiatives. Looking at the black pins, these are cases that are primarily focused on spatial equity. Now here, one example that we would like to highlight is the initiative of Oregon Coast. The Oregon Coast Visitors Association has been working on enhancing accessibility and inclusivity along the coastline. And they are doing this by, for instance, installing Moby mats for wheelchair users or hosting what they call travelability meetings with nonprofits. And they also promote cultural inclusivity by partnering with groups like Oregon Black Pioneers to really celebrate diverse contributions and also support underrepresented communities in the area. Looking at the purple pins, they are linked to cultural equity. And one example we would like to highlight today is the Dalit community in Nepal. This is an initiative that fosters or supports a homestay program in the region, aiming to empower this historically marginalized group, empower them not only economically, but also culturally. And what we can see here in terms of the impact they had since 2016, when the program was started, is that it really boosted community self-perception, it empowered women, and also attracted government support for, amongst others, infrastructure development. And last but not least, I would like to look at the yellow pins, which are linked to cases that focus on tourism experience equity. Here we, in the report, we included excellent examples of socialism initiatives, and one of them is from Belgium. The Everyone Deserves a Holiday initiative started in 2002. And what they aim to do is offer affordable vacations for those in need and thereby promoting social equity through collaboration. And we also have Annie here from Destination Toronto, who is going to introduce to you later on today the Relax, Recharge, Renew initiative from Canada. So coming to the next slide, what really connects these mechanisms is that they focus on the common good. And so in our study, we argue for not only a shift from marketing to management, as Ben already said it, but for a more thoughtful approach to management. So really going beyond talking about management in general terms, but focusing on an equity-driven approach, which starts with identifying the broader societal goals that are high on the destination's agenda, and also the related inequities, then continues with identifying ways tourism can contribute to these goals. Then we can look at the many mechanisms that can support these broader societal goals through tourism and interventions through tourism. And then we can select the right mechanism depending on the local context. We also provide some insights on how to choose the right mechanism, and we provide some new KPIs to support destinations in measuring the impact of these interventions. So what you can see on the slide is a flowchart that we created that outlines this equity-driven management approach and the main steps involved in this. Coming to the next slide and coming to the 10 key learnings and recommendations, I think the most important message is that tourism relies heavily on public resources. So it's only fair that it should contribute to the public good. But for this to happen, we need really a better understanding of how value is created and distributed. We need to better understand why residents want tourism and at what cost they want that. We need new KPIs to be able to measure value distribution. And all of this, we believe, will help us create an evidence base for showcasing the positive impact of tourism across the broader community, and most importantly, its role in inclusive development. For all of this, collaboration is key, and so is aligning our language around equity so that we can hold strategic conversations in an honest and also transparent manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernadett and Ben, for sharing the report and for your work on all of this. And as you can see, you can actually download the report through the link listed there. It's been encouraging to me to see the breadth of case studies that and types of case studies that you've gathered for this report, and I think it's quite inspiring. Up next, we're going to zoom in on a particular example from Toronto, and I invite Annie Ewing from Destination Toronto to present her case study about the program called Relax, Recharge, Renew.
Hello, everyone. Just FYI, I'm at a conference at the moment, so if you can hear a little bit of background noise, please flag that. Great, let me share my screen. Slideshow. Okay, you guys all seeing the presentation here? Perfect.
Looks good.
So hi, everyone. I'm Annie Ewing. I am the Destination Development Manager from Destination Toronto, which is the DMO for Canada's largest city. I'm currently at a conference in Hamilton, Canada, which is situated on the traditional territories of the Erie, the Neutral, the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississauga Indigenous Nations. And today I am excited to introduce an initiative that shows the power of community engagement and social responsibility in tourism. And this is Destination Toronto's Relax, Recharge, Renew program, or RRR, because it's a bit of a mouthful. And I'm going to tell you how the program got started, what it is today, how this contributes to tourism equity, and how your community can create something similar. So what's the background? Back in 2008, Destination Toronto's VP of Marketing at the time was sitting on the board of a respite agency that provides care to kids with complex special needs, like severe autism, for example. He heard from families who were part of the respite care program about how the services were incredible for the kids that they served, who were really well looked after by the professionals who ran the center. But there was also a gap. The parents or primary caregivers of these children had no programs that catered to them and their needs. But let me back up a second. What actually is respite? Respite, or respite as it's sometimes pronounced, is when an unpaid caregiver gets a temporary break from looking after a child or adult with a disability. The purpose of this break is for the caregiver, who's usually but not always a parent, to take some me time or to accomplish some tasks that they can't easily do when they're looking after their loved one. The child or adult with a disability gets cared for at a respite center, or maybe by other members of their family. Now, I want you to picture these parents and caregivers, and maybe you know some of these people in your own network. On top of their jobs, they are caring for their child 24/7. And it's not just regular parenting, which we know comes with its own struggles, but maybe this child can't feed themselves or can't go to the bathroom independently. Maybe there's no school program that actually provides an education that's catered to them and their needs. These parents are therefore completely responsible for full-time care. They likely have little time for themselves and might feel burnt out, anxious, and quite under-supported. So rewinding back to 2008, our VP of Marketing saw an opportunity for Destination Toronto to fill a need by offering these local parents and primary caregivers a restorative weekend staycation in their own city of Toronto. The aim of the program is to give these folks a much-needed break, allowing them to relax, recharge, and renew their energy. So now that we've covered that, let me tell you a little bit about how the RRR program works. Destination Toronto partners with 3 respite agencies who identify eligible families who would benefit from this initiative, and they manage the intake. You can see the agencies here: the Incredible Rena Foundation, Safe Haven, and Community Living Toronto. The children are booked into one of these 3 respite centers for the weekend, while their parents or other caregivers are then treated to a weekend staycation package. So who's allowed to participate? At Destination Toronto, we do not pretend to be experts in respite care. So we ask our respite agency partners to nominate families who already use their services. And this gives us the confidence to know that our participants are people who really qualify and could really use a break. Sometimes the parents actually share with us a little bit about what they're going through in their daily lives. Maybe it's that their kid has been in and out of hospital for their entire childhood, and the parents haven't had a vacation in years. Sometimes they're juggling a marriage breakup along with their other caregiving duties. Lots of these parents have never, ever stayed in a hotel before. Often they're exhausted, and not even necessarily from caregiving, which a lot of them, have gotten used to that lifestyle, but even just the daily struggle of advocating for their child in an extremely unequal world. I want to share with you what one parent said to me after her Relax, Recharge, Renew weekend. She said, "It's so hard to ask for a break from caregiving. There is no off button, and taking a break is so crucial in order to keep going and do what caregivers do. But facilitating it and planning it and even managing the cost is often just too much. I cannot tell you what a gift it was to have nothing to think of, nothing expected of me, and just show up. The isolation and lack of access to the simple things so many people take for granted takes its toll. We watch the world spin away from us and seem to move on without us, and our identity gets lost in caregiving. A weekend like this reminds us that it's okay to take time for ourselves and to put the weight down, even if just for a few days. And not because we don't love our kids, but because we love them so much that we never think to put our needs and wants ahead of theirs." So it's pretty powerful stuff, and our participant feedback regularly brings our staff to tears. So let's get into the juicy stuff. What do the participants actually get on their Relax, Recharge, Renew weekend? Destination Toronto puts together a weekend package for the participants, including round-trip transfers between their hotel and their home, a 2-night hotel stay in downtown Toronto with breakfast, gift cards for restaurant meals for lunch and dinner, tickets to 2 attractions or activities, and a public transit pass. Most of these experiences are donated by tourism businesses in Toronto. I'm the program manager, and part of my job is to reach out to our stakeholders annually to ask for donations. We do put a bit of budget towards the program just in case we don't get enough to cover our needs, but mostly the program is made possible due to the enthusiasm and generosity of our tourism community. Donor businesses are usually thrilled to give back to Torontonians in this way and to make tourism available to a demographic that is typically left out. On this page here, you just see a few examples of some of the certificates and gift cards that we've received. So beyond collecting those donations, what actually is Destination Toronto's role in all of this? So I'm the program manager, and I coordinate with the donor businesses. I also manage a team of 10 staff volunteers from Destination Toronto who plan out each weekend. I book all the hotels up front so that I know that everyone has a confirmed place to stay. And then my volunteers connect with participating caregivers to find out what activities they would like to do, what cuisines they enjoy, and then come up with an itinerary. We bundle up all their tickets and gift cards, send those to their hotel in an exciting welcome package for the participants to collect upon check-in. So, what is the impact of the Triple R program? Since its inception, back in 2008, over 600 families have now participated, showing the profound impact that our industry can have. Relax, Recharge, Renew not only provides respite, but also promotes a sense of belonging for the caregivers who feel like someone is considering them and their mental health. It also allows them to enjoy the city's tourism offerings, which they otherwise don't have the time or means to experience. For our donor businesses, they get to feel like they're driving social change, and they tend to feel like it's as much their program as Destination Toronto's. And for the volunteer team, it's a way for them to get connected to something bigger and to feel like their work in tourism makes a difference in people's lives. As tourism professionals, I'd argue that we have the responsibility to create positive change and contribute to the well-being of our communities. So how can you bring this home to your destination? Start by reaching out to a local respite agency to see if this would be a partnership they'd be interested in. And you can start small. Destination Toronto has a team of 10 volunteers who contribute a couple hours per month, and this is about a third of my job. But we manage 40 staycation weekends a year. Your destination could start with one or one per quarter. And in fact, you don't even need to provide a full weekend. You could maybe just give out a couple of restaurant gift certificates or tickets to attractions. I also discovered that there are respite agencies around the world trying to build programs like this who are part of a global respitality network. So you can see if anything like that already exists in your destination, and then connect with those folks and offer to help introduce them to tourism donors. So I turn this over to you. How can you think outside the box for ways that your destination can expand tourism's horizons to be accessible to your local population? Thank you so much.
And thank you, Annie. That's a very touching story, and it brings up for me some great memories of working in hospitality earlier in my career. Thank you so much for your work on this and for providing us a little challenge at the end as well. We really appreciate you being here. I know you have to get back to your conference, so I'll let you go. Thanks again for being with us. Next, we
Thanks
have...
so much, everyone.
You bet. Next, we have three incredible panelists in the room here with us, each coming from a sponsor organization that has supported this report. So allow me to briefly introduce them, and then we'll get on to it. Huw Owen is the co-founder at TravelLocal, a travel company that provides tailor-made holidays planned by its network of local experts in destinations around the world. Thijs Groot is the program manager of destination development for the Netherlands Board of Tourism and Conventions. NBTC is a lead sponsor and project partner. Calum Matthews is the vice president of sustainability and strategy at 4VI, which is a social enterprise that oversees regional tourism management on Vancouver Island. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here. And I think to start us off, I'd like to ask each of you a question and with give you each a minute or so to answer, and then we'll keep the discussion going. And we'll start with Calum. And I wanted to pick on you first a little bit because the Tribal Park Allies program mentioned in the report as one of the case studies is one of my favorites, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit biased being in your part of the world as well, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a little about how the Tribal Park Allies program around Tofino is distributing tourism wealth to support Indigenous communities in some new and exciting ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David. And yeah, tons of really fascinating case studies. This one's definitely close to my heart. I absolutely love the west coast of the island and Tofino in particular. And I think that the community in Tofino and Taloquiet First Nation, whose territory and ancestral lands include the Tofino area, have kind of long felt that there was more opportunity for the tourism industry to give back. When we look at tourism-related funding in British Columbia, it doesn't really go towards supporting, environmental initiatives and cultural initiatives oftentimes. And really, the Tribal Parks program is an outside-the-box way of generating some revenue from visitors, helping visitors to understand whose territory they're on. The program also creates a pathway for tourism businesses to work more productively and collaboratively with the Taloquiet First Nation. And, at the end of the day, what makes this program really special from my perspective is, there's great education for the operators that are participating. It helps them understand how they can be, productive, business operators in colloquiate territory. It helps visitors understand, where they are, how to be good guests in the Tofino area. And I think perhaps most importantly, it's to date generated about $1 million of revenue that's been reinvested into ecosystem restoration, a lot of habitat work focused on salmon, and then also a range of cultural initiatives. And these are two things that are often so difficult to find funding for. And this is just, to me, a really beautiful way of tourism helping to, pay its way in a really reasonable kind of education-based approach. And as 4VI, we're working with Allied Certifications, the company that helped to design and helps to manage the Tribal Parks program, to bring this program to other parts of Vancouver Island by working with First Nations who are interested in kind of, replicating and then customizing this sort of program to implement within their own territories.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's a great example that has potential. It's got the legs to spread to other parts of Canada. We'll turn to Huw Owen now from TravelLocal. You've identified economic leakage in the report as the key emerging issue in sustainable tourism. So I'm wondering if you can tell us just briefly your perspective on economic leakage, why it's important in your business and such an important part of creating equity.
Sure. Thanks very much, David, and hi to everyone worldwide. Thanks very much for the opportunity to contribute. And just before I go into an answer, I just want to thank the report's authors all over the different institutions all over the world for producing this, because I think it's really a landmark thing. I was listening to everyone earlier, wondering to myself whether this might be the largest collection of people ever gathered together to discuss the specific issue of economic leakage. And I think if that's true, then everyone should pat themselves on the back. I think it's extremely important and really amazing to see. Just specific to your question, the key emerging issue in sustainable tourism is leakage. What is it and why is it important? The way that it's a very complex issue, and I think the report gets that across well. I latch onto the things that I can understand most easily, because I think we probably all do. My view of it is a bit like a pipeline of money between a consumer and the destination. And there are a lot of holes in that pipeline. And there's, money just leaks out of it. And some of it is justified or justifiable. For example, if you don't market your business, then you're not going to get any revenue. So, you have to pay some money, probably to the Googles of this world or, other travel companies, etc., to try and market what you do. But there are quite a few things that are not justifiable. Specific reason why it's important to me personally, I used to live in Cambodia. I lived there for about a year running a local DMC based in Cambodia. And Cambodia is a country which is, booming. I mean, it's growing really, really quickly, but it has tremendous problems with poverty. There's many, many countries around the world who are heavily invested in the tourism industry, have the same kind of issues. In Cambodia, they don't really have a tax base. So there is no hospital that you can walk into and be treated for. There's a friend of mine who lives in Cambodia now, working in tourism there. He said to me the other day that the security guard in the apartment where he lives got turned away for an urgent hospital appointment, a surgery that he needed in order to survive. He was just turned away. He's got no money. So he just gave him the $300 and said, go to the hospital. Why does that hospital have no money? Why do Cambodian kids often have to pay to go to school? And it's because there's a tax-based problem and economic leakage in tourism. If you want to try and break it down into manageable bite-sized problems, I would start with tax and level the playing field and ensure that tourism companies, especially the destination, are contributing to that tax base. And if you're a buyer, an international buyer in tourism, you shouldn't be buying from companies that are not contributing to that tax base, because that's what pays for hospitals and schools all across these destinations. And it's heartbreaking to see the consequences of that. Why is it also important? I would just quickly add at the very end of this, it's a concrete thing, leakage. If you can get more money into the hands of an individual person and destination, you've made a difference straight away. It's not abstract. Sometimes these sorts of problems can seem abstract. This is a very real one. It's tangible. You can pick it up and hold it in your hand. And if we can get money into the hands of people in the destinations, you will improve their lives bit by bit. It will have an effect.
Thanks, Huw. I can see some similarities between the economic leakage issues that you're talking about with the Tribal Park Allies program that Calum was mentioning as well. I mean, some of the funds there are going to cultural initiatives and conservation and things like that, but it really does, run the gamut as far as what issues need to be addressed with that. So thank you for sharing. I'd like to turn to Thijs de Groot now from NBTC from Netherlands. Thank you for being here. I know that NBTC has been researching tourism's impact on residents and is seeking some tools to help you reach equity in more areas. So I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how this report can help you and other destinations identify effective strategies or policies.
Yeah. Thanks, David, and thanks everybody for taking the time to have this conversation with each other. Very much appreciated. From a Destination Netherlands perspective, for us, 2018 was an important year where we had a new strategy laid out for the coming years, where the resident really was put more centrally, and we had the ambition that every Dutch resident would benefit from tourism. So from that moment on, we really said, okay, tourism should be not an end goal, but a means to basically create sustainable and thriving communities. So from that moment onwards, we've been exploring the topic because it was very much unexplored territory. So we've looked at how you involve residents, identifying what the impact for communities and residents really looks like, to make it more tangible. But the whole equity angle and the report that is now coming out, what it allows us to do really is to have a more precise conversation about this. It's adding another layer to this whole topic that we didn't have. So next to basically creating momentum, hopefully, to raise the priority and the urgency around this topic, because I think that is what can happen really now. We also have very tangible methods, mechanisms that we can use to have the right conversation, but also to just start really implementing them. So I think that's where the real value is in what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you say about having more precise conversations. I think that's so important. And I think that's one of the goals of this report as well, is to, give people the words, the tools, the understanding, and being able to maybe communicate to others in their organizations or destinations about, what we're actually talking about when we say equity, right? What are we referring to, and how can we help make things better? I'm wondering, is, looking across all the different examples, we've seen some great examples today. There's more listed in the report. Part of my job at Destination Think is to uncover some of the most relevant and practical examples where positive action is already being taken. That's one thing that I really enjoy, and maybe help people feel less alone, to show them that the solutions actually are already out there. So I want to take your temperature a little bit. Anyone can chime in. When you think about your destination at large or your tourism colleagues, are they hot or cold when it comes to equity? Do you feel like you're surrounded by many more positive examples that are just waiting for the spotlight, or is it a real struggle to find them, or is it kind of a mixture?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in here. And I think it's a really great question, and kind of linked to one that I saw in the Q&A that was kind of questioning why this report and work is groundbreaking. And, I think as the person with that question mentioned, and you did as well, David, there's, kind of a scattershot of random examples from community DMOs, from tourism businesses, nonprofits within the space. But I think that what's special about this report is it's really the first time that I'm aware of that there's been a really deep dive in a more global sense, looking at how we in the tourism industry are prioritizing this conversation around equity. And I think for a lot of us, we didn't necessarily join the tourism industry initially to advance equity. It hasn't really been a huge priority for a very long time. And I think for me, we are able to see and celebrate lots of really great examples of what's happening on the ground, and also use this guide as a bit of a toolkit, a inspiration piece to help us kind of challenge our own ideas and kind of push some boundaries within the communities that we work within. And I think the last thing I was going to say when it comes to, I think we're definitely kind of warming up as an industry to this. I think, this report, the number of people listening in this morning from British Columbia time at least, really demonstrates the interest that's here. And I really think there's an opportunity for us as tourism organizations to look for other organizations that are more established within the equity space and help partner with them, kind of help them do what they do best. And I think one example here on Vancouver Island is the Immigrant Welcome Center. They've been a natural partner for tourism, helping to tourism's able to help with exposure to the community, getting to know the places that they've moved, and then also helping with job placements. So there's kind of dual benefits around welcoming newcomers to our community and also supporting workforce development. And we didn't have to do that all by ourselves. We were able to partner with an expert. So, I think we're warming up, and the best way for us to quickly make a bigger impact is to partner with experts in this space within our communities.
Thanks, Calum.
Yeah, maybe if I can tag along with that one, I think it makes me think that a lot of parties in the sector probably don't necessarily think about equity on a daily basis, and I think that the terminology might be something that they're not used to, but it definitely is, I think, providing a lot of pathways, language, mechanisms, outcomes that that they are actually searching for. So I think that's really, I think that's one way to look at it. It's providing elements that they're really that can really be of value to them. So I think that's also one way to bring it across and think about how we can put this into their local context and their local mandate and role that they have.
Yeah, fantastic. Huw, any thoughts there?
Can I add one more thought? Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm also thinking, maybe this is us as a sector gaining awareness about things that are already happening by all kinds of social organizations that are already doing this for a very long time, but we've never really linked it to our efforts, our industry, and the things that we do. So it's almost like it's already happening. That's the sense that I'm getting, but we need to tie it into what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, another element of this that came to mind is, that we've all got our blind spots as well. And I was just wondering if in any of your work, how you might approach, you can't know what you don't know, right? So, and especially when it comes to equity, there's so many different kinds of equity, and we can only speak from our own point of view. So just wanted to throw it out there. Does anybody have any thoughts about getting to know your blind spots or avoiding some of the pitfalls there?
Well, maybe just in a general sense, maybe, but I think one very important one is be curious. So curiosity, I think, is a very important driver to be open to your blind spots, but also to maybe information and elements that you feel uncomfortable with. Because I think being uncomfortable would be the second one that I wanted to mention, is that we really need to be open and address and face all the elements and all the effects and impacts that our industry has. And that also means maybe the negative or more negative ones. So being open to that, which by definition will probably make us uncomfortable. That's what we need. That's basically a cue. If we feel uncomfortable, if things really start to become interesting, then that's a cue. So I would look for that.
Yeah, I think we're talking about systemic changes here in a lot of cases as well. Like we're looking at specific case studies, but also talking about the bigger picture. And so if we're not uncomfortable, maybe, yeah, we're not making the progress we need. Any last thoughts about that one?
If I may just jump in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what I'm going to say is also related to the previous point that you discussed. And one of these is that we still often talk about the benefits of tourism in general terms. So yes, it contributes to jobs, it contributes to employment, it generates revenue, but we fail to understand who really benefits and who bears the burden. So I really believe we need a more nuanced understanding of value distribution, and perhaps that's something this report can contribute to. The other point is talking about the community as a homogeneous group. We often still do that, but destinations have multiple communities, and the community really is a heterogeneous group. So I think it's really important that we look at who is in that community or the communities, and we find ways to better understand them and find ways to better address their needs and wants. Also when it comes to tourism destination development. And I think that's what we really advocate for. And I hope that this report will bring these aspects into daily conversations.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. There are no homogenous communities anywhere. I want to be respectful of our time and probably close the conversation here. Ben, is there anything that you wanted to say before I close up?
No, I mean, just thank you everyone, basically, and thank you for everyone in the chat as well. That's been really interesting. I'm just looking at the questions and wondering if I'm not sure how much time we got, but I mean, Ian, thanks for your 2 questions. We've I think answered one at least to a point. The issue of capitalism, it always comes up. Like, I'll be trying to solve capitalism with what we're doing at the Travel Foundation, but I would probably just say that it's also about public-private tourism. It's not just a capitalist venture. Capitalism also has stakeholders that they have to kind of understand and support, and there's a sort of selfishness within this equity for the evil capitalists among us. So I think that there is an answer there that is, that there is more equitable and less equitable capitalism. And then Dale asked about the Measuring Sustainable Tourism Initiative. We have in the report tried very hard to highlight possible KPIs, either generally, so that kind of, I think the question about like how, what can we measure and everything, I think we've highlighted at least, if you're going to just measure some things, just think about the equity angle on that and just put 2 or 3 extra measures in for at least some of the areas that you think you might have a concern about. So if it's, I know, if it's jobs, don't just count jobs, think about, well, what kind of job and who is in that job, that kind of thing, just to kind of give you a bit more of a sense of what's going on. Just so if you can just think about that and just think, okay, we need 1 or 2 extra checks on here. Otherwise we are going to be blindsided and something's going to happen that we hadn't appreciated, and we'll be firefighting in 2 years' time or whatever. So I think, so we have tried very hard to bring forward some of these KPIs and also be more specific for more specific mechanisms as well. So that's all there in the report. There are some dotted line connections to the MST stuff, but I wouldn't say that we have kind of, tried to go beyond. I mean, it's such an early stage, I think, in terms of wanting to build the evidence around this to demonstrate tourism's contributions, wider contributions, that I think we're at that early stage, and so anything is better than nothing, I think, is the message right now. And then just finally, thanks everyone. There's so many people who were involved in this project, and it's been going for such a long time. I tried to thank everyone on a LinkedIn message, and the LinkedIn platform told me that I was tagging too many people. So clearly it's that many people who got involved. But thank you to everyone who's here now, who's in the chat, and who's been involved in the project. It's been a very collaborative and major effort.
Great. Thanks for that, Ben. And thank you to our panelists and everyone for being here with us today. I think we've learned a lot and really enjoyed this talk. So thank you. And also, again, shout out to the partnership behind this report, including all the organizations represented today. The report is only the beginning, of course, and it contains some practical steps that you can use in your organizations. So I want to encourage the DMOs in the room to explore those 40 levers for action and consider those local needs in their destination strategies. You can access that full report on the Travel Foundation website free of charge. That's at the travelfoundation.org.uk/equitable. And if you have further questions, you can get in touch with Ben, who will share his email in the chat. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you all another time.